Hello and welcome to my channel on human design. So as you know, I go through the viewer questions that have come in the last week and sometimes previous weeks if I haven't got to some of them, and do my best to answer them and to talk about them. So let us go straight into it with our first question on the 4/6 profile. This is the question from Eatmo Books. I love your content and I have a question for you. Right now, are there any indications of why 4/6 profiles have specific problems of being accepted by society or even family? Or is it a main thing of being a 4/6er to see things like they should be, but the world isn't ready yet? I am 48 now, self-authority projector, and transcending towards the third part of my journey. Well, Eat Mo Books, well done on getting so far. And the third part of your journey is going to be a very interesting one. Everything leads to that Chiron return and going through into the healing journey. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, to your question and the 4/6, let us look at the profile and what it is. The 4 is basically friendly and mean, both. And the 6 is a tripartite life. In other words, you go through these 3 stages that you're aware of. The 4 is fixed. It doesn't like a lot of change. In its very nature, it is moving from one platform to another. You know, never leave a job till you have another job lined up. Never leave a lover till you have another lover joined up. Always go from one thing to the next. That is the way that the 4th line operates. And they're also opportunist. So when you think about childhood and you think about certain things that go against the 4/6, you know, that can be held as a resentment. There are certain things where they are not very movable. You know, certain things can trigger them that they can hold on to. And in family, I know 4/6s that have a lovely family life, and I know those that don't. So again, it's about what happens. The 4/6 is also a voyeur profile. In other words, they like to watch. And if they've got siblings, you know, and they're feeling a bit mean, they might get their sibling to do something and they watch the chaos result and thoroughly enjoy it. That can bring up some problems, I would have thought, between the siblings and the 4/6. And the other side of it, the 6th line, is really trying to get towards perfection. And this becomes more apparent as they head towards the Saturn return. But it's certainly there, you know, that they want to be all that they are. They want perfection. They want to get, you know, to the Chiron stage where you're heading when they're still young. And so there is a certain sense, perhaps, that they feel special. As you said in your question, you know, is it simply because we see the way things really are and the rest of the world has to catch up? Well, you see things in your way, and we all see things in our own way. We have a specific view that we can see from correctly. So when you think about the 4/6 and the friendly nature of that profile, and the fact that they become the confidant of those friends around them, often the 4/6s are, you know, people come up and ask them things, you know, friends come up and say, well, what would you do? What do you think I should do? So there is this connection made between other people and them when they're younger as well. And they have this kind of role that they can move into. So when we think about the confidant and we think about the profile, it's also about trust. You know, are they going to share the secret that their friend told them? You know, hopefully not. But if you've got an unconscious 33, who knows what might pop out, which can also cause problems. So I think for those reasons, there are a number of different things that can happen in the 4/6's life when they're in the family that can set up certain patterns that they will find difficult to break through. That's not to say that they can't, they can. And regarding being accepted by others, they can be accepted by others. I've seen 4/6s, go from one platform to another and be, really highly regarded. So that is something that can happen. And as we've talked about in the past on this channel, the 4/6s, they have their network of people, but that doesn't really mean they have really close friendships, a lot of really close friendships. They probably have some or a few, but really, people are opportunities for them. And, I guess they run into some kinds of issues when people feel they're being taken advantage of, when the fourth line correctly takes the opportunity that arises. So those are things to consider. But I wouldn't stress too much about the problems of being accepted. If you just live your life and you be correct according to who you are, and things pan out well. Anyway, that's what I have to say. I hope that's been useful. Thank you. And the next question is from NC09039. And their question is, I'm a 4/6 mental projector with the channel of logic as my only channel. I have a question about the environment or sounding board authority. For big decisions, I feel this approach works well to talk to close friends and hear my truth come out of my voice. However, I make most of my decisions on my own, and I'm wondering if you have any advice on day-to-day decision-making for mental projectors. Generally, I do what feels naturally and right for me in the moment, even without a sacral response. I know what to eat in the morning and what book I want to read, for example. With my open G, I know I'm very sensitive to environments, so I'm very picky about being in safe, comfortable places, usually higher up places with a bird's eye view because of my environment is mountains. I'm also picky about my friends, although I'm usually an exhausted fourth line with way too many social commitments. Would you say that mental projectors have sovereignty over their own decision-making? I have to say the no inner authority label feels a little disempowering. I'm guilt motivation, so perhaps that can also be a helpful signpost on whether I am acting correctly. Interesting question. Thank you for that question. The day-to-day decisions, without a sacral response, without a splenic center, without the emotional feelings to really allow to move in their wave, and without the will, do I want to do it or not? It is not something. This is why we say there's no inner authority. It's not meant to be disempowering. I mean, human design is basically, this is the way it is, so deal with it. That's it. There is no inner authority coming from within you. Having said that, the mental projectors that I've met and talked to, I find they have a very good way of, or they can have a very good way of being in their own lives. They can be very succinct in what they say when they use their energy. The main thing is they don't want to overuse their energy. They can get easily exhausted around people, as you know. So there has to be, a certain reliance on the way one lives in the way that one knows works for you. The same definition was in the chart of a famous astrologer, and when asked, how do you do what you do, she just said, you have to be ruthless. You have to be ruthless. You have to realize that your energy, which you do, your energy has to be looked after. You don't want to waste it. You want to use it sparingly and in an effective way. So that's going to be something that you're going to learn from your experience as a mental projector. It's something you have learned. And in that sense, you are already working on reducing resistance in terms of doing too much. Where, of course, it can get out of order is when you're around people and you're around the life force and you get carried away with that, and you can kind of get addicted to the sacral energy. So that's where you have to be careful, as you know. But in the day-to-day, I think most mental projectors will have a fairly good idea of what will work for them and what won't work for them, no matter what their profile. I think it comes from simply being that open, and being like a leaf on the wind. You want to find a place of safety. You want to find a certain consistency. And the day-to-day decisions you make, if they have worked in the past and they continue to work, in the small things, then you'll have set it up that way. So that's really what I have to say about it. As you've recognized, for big decisions, it is much better to have your sounding board. But, we've got to live and get through our day. And yeah, like I say, my observation is that mental projectors can be really very good at that. Okay, thank you for the question. The next question is from Scarlett, and she asks, I have a question regarding one of my dearest friends. She's a 1-3 manifesting generator. Her entire incarnation cross of the Sphinx 2 is in her undefined G center, plus the 25 and 46. She also has an open heart and solar plexus, undefined head and ajna. She's had an incredibly hard life. Does this have anything to do with an incarnation cross which lives completely in the not self? Thank you for your insight and generosity with your knowledge. She also has the 5432 and all the channels between the 57, 20, and 34. You got to love the ironies that come up in life, Scarlett. The Sphinx is there for direction, there to, especially the Sphinx too, is there to offer up direction. You could go this way, you could go that way, you could go the other way. They can be very good at that. But having no idea about direction themselves, and if they don't know about their environment, and as a 1-3, they're trial and erroring their way through with what they do know and trying to find a way through. As a manifesting generator, I should know, I'm a 1-3 MG. What happens is they can dig themselves a far deeper hole and have a hard life. Yes. The 3420 can go diving in there, being busy about what really isn't going to work. And that ambition, that drive not to fail, that drive to succeed, the fear of failure, throwing everything into something that is the wrong thing for them. So they're going to meet a lot of resistance. And that's what brings the hard life, resistance. So, as a dear friend of yours, all you can do is speak to them about what you know about human design. Help open them up to that. They are investigators. You say, look, there's another way of doing it. Maybe you want to take a look at this. Download a free report from my website and give it to them. Get them to see if they're open to that. 1-3s can get caught in a whole lot of mistake after mistake after mistake, and keep pushing, and not know how to get out of it, and looking into the details of things that actually are not relevant to getting them out of the whole life trap. All I can say regarding the Sphinx is it's ironic, isn't it? And it will change when they get to the right environment. It will change when they're busy, when they're more selfish, being busy about what really turns them on, what they really love. To put all that incredible energy for the drive for success, and their, so much is in that channel of transformation. They've got a good chart for getting things done and success, actually. So it's all in them, just let them know it's all in them. They're just going in the wrong direction, and they need to back off and, have another go in a different way. And then they should be open to it. You know, they should be open to it, especially if you can show them things in their chart that they can recognize. It will intrigue them. So thank you for being a good friend to the 1-3, and give him a hand, eh? Thank you. The next question is from Anna, and it's regarding the 1949. All right, it's a long question. So it's basically about in rave cosmology. Ra talks a lot about the raves, but not so much about the humans post 2027. I know about the mutation on the 1949 and other related channels. I have the 19 4 times. My husband has the 1949 as his authority channel. It's a bit of a theme for us. I wonder if someone born with the 1949 as their authority and activation would have just a dysfunctional authority and a very hard time, or would it be so dysfunctional it wouldn't be considered and the authority would change? In the case of a design like my husband's, would he just be an ego manifester because he's got the 2145? And also about other gates changing. The raves will have a flattening of the wave, and it seems like the humans won't. But how will those other gates and channels be affected, and thus need a different approach in readings? Sometimes it's a bit confusing reading about the mutation to differentiate if certain details apply only to raves or to humans as well. Okay, Anna, a bit of a long question there. So let me just reiterate what is going on with the change in the histidine codon. There is this deal between the 19 and the 49, you know, between the butcher and the sheep, between the sacrificed and the sacrificer. The deal is that we will look after the animals and keep them safe and feed them and love them. And the deal is every now and again, we'll come in and eat one of them. Well, that deal is being broken. The movement means that deal is going to be broken. And I'm not saying this is going to necessarily happen in the human world. We will have to wait and see. So the 19 is needy and, you know, wants to be looked after to some degree, wants to be accepted by the 49. But, you know, the 49, you know, may not be open to it as much as they did before. The channel is breaking, the codon is breaking. And there are many ways of looking at that. Especially when you think about the rave, which I don't really want to go into again, because we're going to do far too many things on the rave, and I want to do a whole thing on it and cover it properly. You're right, Ra didn't say a lot about what's going to happen to humans post 2027, and it is something that I want to go into and extrapolate from what we currently know, which he didn't know back then. So there are many things to say about that and to think about. But let's just say, for the purposes of this question, the deal between the 19 and the 49 is breaking. The 19 is the resources too. It's not like they're just needy, you know, they are the foodies. They'll find where the food is, they'll find the resources. You know, what will the deal then be with the 49 and their protection and their emotional authority? It's going to change. How much it'll change in humans, I don't know. But I don't see that the emotional authority of your husband, for example, will go and they'll become an ego manifester. No, I think that will remain. After all, he is born this side of 2027. So he will remain an emotional authority being. So those are the things that I would consider. And that's all I'll say on the matter for the time being. But thank you for the question. Thank you. And the final question is from Channeled Explorer, one of our regulars, and this is their question. Hi, Richard. I read in one of Ra's transcripts that we have different voices in our throat center, defined or not, depending on the gates we have activated. He said that talking in a voice that is not yours leads to consequences. For example, having the gate 45, you express what you have or not. And having the 56, you express what you believe or not. These consequences come as a result of speaking in a conditioned voice that may not belong to you, and you do not have the mechanics to deal with what that voice brings. As a completely open throat myself, I found it intriguing when he said the only people who do not operate on that level and who can essentially talk with any voice without consequence is us. As we do not have any voice of our own, we operate on a whole different level of condition. Could you please elaborate? Great question. Great question. Something to really think about. So let's first of all look at the consequences of speaking in a voice that you don't have. I have the 56, I don't have the 45. You know, if I say I haven't got this and I want it, you know, then I'm going in the wrong direction. That's not really what my life is about. You know, my voice isn't to gather people together in the way of the king or the queen, you know, to gather people around me. That isn't the way it works. It's uncomfortable for me to speak in that way. When I talk about what I believe, which is basically the storyteller, I will put out a narrative as I'm doing now, because that's the natural voice. That's the natural way I speak. So when we're speaking in other people's voices, we're basically aligned to their way of expression. We can learn from it, but it's not our voice. So yeah, there's going to be consequences. And you won't use that voice very often either, is also something I'd say. So for example, I don't have the 62. I don't say, I think, you know, and when it does pop out of me, I go, oh, whose voice is that then? Because it's unnatural to me. So I'll say that. Now, regarding the open throat, this is the completely open throat. Now, this really is a very, very interesting thing to consider. That there are no consequences in the sense of you don't have a filter anywhere there. So when you express, you are expressing from taking in the information, from the experience of taking in what has been manifested, what has been said, what has not been said, what has been done, what has not been done. So in a way, you are speaking from a matter of just what you're picking up. And in that sense, there's no weight to it. There's no agenda to it. It's just a matter of you expressing what you're seeing or what is missing, or what needs to be looked at. You're scanning everyone around you and what's going on. It's an incredible thing. You know, it amazes me that open throats fall so easily into talking too much and over manifesting, because what they've got to be able to scan with a completely open throat is amazing. It's amazing. And I really look forward to you experimenting in your life, in your own experience, to find out more of what he means by that, because you are the one to find out. But that's my understanding of it, and it's one of those wonders. Well, I do hope you all enjoyed this, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will be back again next week with something completely different. Bye for now.